reproductive rights law. So Jessica, thank you so much for joining us here. This news breaking just moments ago. In your profession as a woman, what is your initial reaction to this ruling? Are you surprised?
I'm not surprised. Anyone who has been following the court for the past 25 years saw this coming. And there have been reproductive rights scholars predicting the demise of Roe for decades, and it has now come to pass. I'm not the least bit surprised. I am horrified and devastated, but I am not surprised.
Now, Jessica, we can see protests erupting outside of the Supreme Court right now. Emotions are very high. And, when it comes to this ruling, can you go over a lot of the questions that people have right now? First off, what states are going to see changes? I know according to the Center for Reproductive Rights, when the Supreme Court chooses to overturn or limit Roe v. Wade, which they just did, abortion rights would only be protected in less than half of the states. So can you really elaborate that for our viewers right now? What comes next?
Sure. So what we are about to see is approximately 26 states are going to ban abortion almost immediately or in the near future. Each state, now that this question has been returned to the states, has different laws in place. So some states, the overturning of Roe immediately goes into effect in the state, and the state can ban abortion immediately. In other states, there has to be action by, for example, the attorney general in the state. Other states have mechanisms where there's like a 30-day wait where the legislature has to take action. But suffice to say, in almost 26 states, abortion will be banned almost immediately.
And, when it comes to certain states having those trigger laws that would immediately ban all abortions or make performing an abortion a felony, when it comes to women's rights, Jessica, are we now going to see women or doctors get arrested for receiving or performing an abortion?
We are certainly going to see doctors and medical professionals facing prosecution and facing criminal prosecution. Most of the states' laws are worded that the person who performs the abortion is the one who faces criminal liability. That said, I think the Supreme Court has opened the door today for states to begin to prosecute women and the people who love them who are seeking abortion care. But immediately, the impact is on the providers of abortion care.
And when it comes to the providers, I mean, these are medical facilities, Jessica. Do you feel like we are going to just see a majority of them in states close down? What does this mean when it comes to the business perspective and medical perspective of abortion clinics as a whole?
Yes, they're going to have to shut down. Clinics are going to have to shut down immediately. We saw that across the board in Texas when we faced similar issues. It will happen almost immediately in Mississippi today, and it will happen in 26 states across the country. And what this means is that for the vast majority of women in America, they will not be able to seek safe abortion care within anywhere in their state. And this will disproportionately affect low-income women and women of color. What we have done is made abortion unsafe. We have not made it that women will not seek abortion care. They will now seek unsafe, illegal abortion care. What we have done today is made it unsafe for women.
And, when it comes to reaction from women, Jessica, you could see, again, we're showing our viewers a vantage point outside of the Supreme Court as protests erupt with this decision coming down minutes ago. But really, can you talk about your insight when it comes to what we've seen over the last month since we first got that bombshell leak? I mean, we're talking major rallies all across the nation, even on conservative justices' lawns and at their homes.
Mm-hmm. I think we need to give this some perspective. When we are talking about abortion care, we're talking about a fourth to one-third of American women have an abortion at some point in their lives. This is not a procedure that is off in the margins or a procedure that most women don't have. We're talking about at least a quarter of American women. And the people who choose abortion care, 60% of them are already mothers. That's who we're talking about. And these are people who are going to protest, and these are people who are going to vote. We have managed to take an issue that the vast majority of Americans believe that abortion care should be legal in at least some circumstances. And the Supreme Court has flipped that on its head today.
And, when it comes to abortion clinics in these states shutting down, Jessica, when Texas and Oklahoma issued abortion restrictions, clinics in neighboring states got overwhelmed and had long wait times. So what can you say about the states that are going to keep abortion laws in place and that are most likely going to see an influx of women coming in from other state lines?
Yeah, this isn't hypothetical, right? When we saw bans go into effect in Texas, we saw a 12-time increase in women leaving Texas and going to other states. In the 7 neighboring states around Texas, a 12-time increase. That's unbelievable. We are about to see that in states, particularly on the coast. So we know on the East Coast and the West Coast, abortion is likely to remain legal in at least some circumstances, and we are going to see women traveling to those states. I want to note again who this is going to impact. If you are a high income woman, a woman with the means to take time off of work or to travel, you will still be able to obtain safe abortion care, likely at higher costs and significant travel costs. If you are a low income woman who cannot do those things, you will not have access to safe abortion care.
And, we really immediately after that bombshell leak, you talk about these certain states. I want to focus in on New York for a second, because New York Governor Kathy Hochul, we also heard from Attorney General Letitia James, basically signed into a state law protecting some of these abortion clinics and, really protecting the rights of people coming in from out of state. Do you feel that more states are going to do that, or do you feel otherwise?
I think the states that are already protecting abortion care will continue to protect abortion care. I think what we're seeing in New York is likely, that is not unusual, and that did not surprise me. What will matter is the balance of power in the states going forward. Elections will matter, right? Legislatures and governors are going to have to flip in order for abortion care to be protected in a state.
And, when it comes to abortion care, there are all sorts, right? There is a surgical abortion, but then there is also pills that you can take. And then we've got Plan B one step. We've got birth control. So when it comes to all forms of contraceptive, what does this mean for the future of that?
So when we talk about abortion care, there are 2 types of abortion. There's 2 types of abortion care. There is surgical abortion care, as you noted, and then there's medical abortion, where a woman can be prescribed medications and have an abortion at their home and without surgery. That's the majority of women today. The majority of abortions performed in the United States are now medical abortions rather than surgical abortions. The decision today does not speak to the question of contraception or emergency contraception, but we should be afraid, because what the court did today was undermine the privacy right that undermines the right to obtain abortion care and provide abortion care. That same privacy right undermines things like access to contraceptive care or access to emergency contraception. Today is just the beginning of eviscerating women's ability to make decisions about their bodies and pregnancy.
And I feel like if you're not up to speed with this case, maybe with that leak that was seen at the beginning of May, this is all stemming from a case out of Mississippi, Dobbs versus Jackson Women's Health Organization. As we monitor this breaking news, can you give our viewers some perspective into that case and really how this all came about?
So over the last decade, we have seen dozens of states enact hundreds of pieces of legislation, further and further chipping away at the right to access abortion care. Mississippi was one of the latest. The Mississippi law at issue at the court today is a ban on abortion after 15 weeks. Importantly, it does not have exceptions for things like rape or incest. So even if you are a 13-year-old girl who has been raped by a family member, you could not seek abortion care after 15 weeks. The court today looked at that law, but didn't just say, oh, there's a new 15-week mark, right? What they said is Roe and Casey are overturned. That means that the states across the nation can enact any form of restriction or ban on abortion care that they choose to. So importantly, while this was a question about a 15-week ban, the court did not issue a narrow decision. It issued a sweeping decision that overturns Roe versus Wade.
And you mentioned a really important point, Jessica, when it comes to rape, when it comes to incest. Really, for viewers who are just tuning in, can you elaborate more on how that will be impacted in some of these states that are expected to immediately issue these trigger laws or place abortion bans on women, or even elaborate on certain rules when it comes to, okay, you can get an abortion, but it's only for X, Y, and Z reason?
Exactly. So when we look at the 26 states that are likely to ban abortion within the next couple of weeks, many of them do not have exceptions for rape and incest. Some of them do, but many of them do not. And this is the critically important point. Whether you can access safe abortion care in any circumstance now, whether you have been raped, whether you were the victim of incest, whether you are facing severe health risk, no matter what your circumstances are, it will depend on where you live and how much money you have. That's what the court has done today. They have made abortion care a question of where you live, how much money you have, and made patchwork across the country. This will force women to flee to other states to access safe and legal abortion care.
Jessica, I do want to turn our focus right now, as we are getting reaction in from lawmakers and, really just representatives across the country, far and near. I want to start with this tweet coming from former President Barack Obama. Today, the Supreme Court not only reversed nearly 50 years of a precedent, it relegated the most intensely personal decision someone can make to the whims of politicians and ideologues, attacking the essential freedom of millions of Americans. We've also got some more coming in. Actually, Leader Mitch McConnell, a Republican and conservative, as he's made very adamant in the past, the Supreme Court's landmark ruling in Dobbs is courageous and correct. This is a historic victory for the Constitution and for the most vulnerable in our society. So you've got conflicting reaction here to this landmark decision. What do you make of some people saying, this is wrong, and some people saying this is actually the right thing to do?
It's not surprising, but it also highlights how politicized the Supreme Court has become. Historically, the Supreme Court was supposed to be an institution that was balanced and fair and immune from political pressure. Today's decision on strict partisan lines by justices all appointed by conservative presidents shows us exactly where the Supreme Court is going. It's not surprising. We predicted this even before the leaked opinion. And it's not surprising to me that someone like Mitch McConnell, a white man of means, who is never going to have to be in the situation of choosing what to do with an unintended pregnancy, of choosing what to have to do if he was the victim of rape or incest. He's never going to be in that position. It does not surprise me that he is not speaking for American women.
And, as reaction continues to pour out, when you talk about the Supreme Court being really politicized, I mean, we are seeing this happen right before our eyes. What further rights and privileges, Jessica, do you think could be at risk at this point?
I think the Supreme Court today has thrown a lot of things into the mix. Again, the Roe decision, the Casey decision, the decades of Supreme Court jurisprudence around access to abortion care all depended on a privacy right. Many other cases, many other areas of law depend on similar privacy rights. I think we should be very concerned about things like the right to marry someone of the same sex, right? I think some of the Supreme Court's cases in the area of gay marriage also relied on similar privacy rights. So if Roe and Casey are overturned, we should be very concerned that other cases that recognize the right to privacy could have the same fate.
And, when we see a majority of conservative justices, Jessica, could we see a more liberal Supreme Court overturn this current decision years down the road? Really, that question kind of leads into a broader question: is how, back in 1973, as women, did we get the right to have an abortion? And then decades later, we see that reverse. How do you feel that this really works?
I think it works by who's on the court. Right. What we saw a court that has flipped. We saw a court that previously had justices that were appointed by presidents who believed in upholding the underpinnings of Roe versus Wade. The last few appointees do not share that view. And I don't see this changing anytime soon. When we look at the justices on the court, the justices that have been appointed by conservative presidents are on the younger side, right? Most of them are likely to stay for a while. I do not see the court flipping anytime soon.
And, when it comes to women right now, Jessica, what advice do you have to women who may be feeling scared, may be feeling emotional, may not have the best reaction to the decision that just dropped?
I have several friends who are therapists, and they have said to me that when the draft decision came down, this was all their female clients wanted to talk about, because it is not just a question for women of will I be able to access safe abortion care. It's a fundamental question of how the country, how the court views their right to bodily autonomy and views their right to make decisions about their lives. It's a question of whether we trust women to make the decisions that are right for them. And today, the Supreme Court said no. So for the women who are looking at this decision, I would say stock up on your birth control. Make sure that you have that available. Stock up on Plan B. Make sure that you have that available. And then begin talking to your network in your states, and your families, and your friends to figure out the clinics that are staying open in your state or around you.
Jessica, we really
and I would say donate to national abortion funds. Donate.
Yeah, and that really, you bring up a great point, Jessica, is that now as we move forward in the future, like you just mentioned, how can women help each other? Where do you feel that, abortion clinics, and, we kind of touched on this at the beginning of our interview, but as more people join and watch our feed, really when it comes to abortion clinics and, abortion as a medical treatment, a medical option, really, where do you see this moving forward here just within the next couple of days and weeks?
I think in the next couple of days and weeks, abortion providers, physicians, clinic staff are going to be scrambling to figure out what they can and cannot do in compliance with their state's law. I think the most important thing that the average American citizen can do right now is mobilize, vote, change state legislatures, change national representation, donate to the National Network of Abortion Funds, support local clinics. Another huge piece of this is training the next generation of doctors to provide abortion care. So medical schools need to be focusing on the provision of abortion care as well.
Well, Jessica, we really appreciate you joining our broadcast this morning as this breaking news has just come into our desk. We are definitely going to be speaking with you again soon. We really appreciate your insight, and we hope that you have a good weekend. Thank you so much.